Howdy Loomers, and welcome back. A very big thank you first and foremost to all of my patrons, the ones who very first started out at the end of October, and our new ones in November. At the end of this video, you will see a long list of credits to everybody who I need to give a big nod to and a very big thank you. So here I have the second, sorry, broke another nail. I really need to get my nail girl on it. In this one, I literally, it looks kind of simple, and it really is simple. This was the very first one I actually doodled up in my tablet about a year and a half, 2 years ago now. It was, one that I thought was probably too simple. But the other day when my son and I were going through all of my tablet doodles, we decided the very first one needs to see the light of day because it's simple, it's cute, and here you go. So the other thing that we were going back and forth on, because I literally only have these numbered. I don't give them names until they come to fruition. And I was going back and forth on the name with a lot of different options because, as you can see, let me try and get something with a little bit of a white background. Here we go. So that way you guys can see. This one again, there you go. So it has 2 row of, I guess you call them eyelets or spacings, but it also has, there you go, this stitched part that I have running across, and then there's this little twist right here. So to separate the two. So I was going back and forth on this, and a friend of mine locally here, I had shown her this when she stopped by to visit with me the other day. And this particular hat is most likely going to her because she said when I was done to let her know because she loves these colors. And this is for a smaller woman or even a child's hat. I purposely made it smaller because she, unlike me, I have a ton of hair. She has very thin, fine hair. So I did it on a smaller loom. But so going back and forth on this, I decided I really like the name of this color, which is simply Montreal. And then Becca, she's my right-hand person. She was like, I love the twist in it. So we're just going to call it Montreal Twist because it has like a little bridge with that twist in it. And the color that I'm using is actually Red Heart Colorscape. And the name of the color is called Montreal. So, ta-da! It is Montreal Twist. So, I'm not very creative with names. I just kind of go with what I see or what I feel. And that's what I have. So the great thing about this is obviously this is a hat. And this hat I actually did on the topper of the rotating loom. I don't really use the rotating part too much because it's so high that when I loom, I just loom on my pillow on my lap, like I'm sure a lot of you do. So I don't like anything really high, and I just use the topper. It's 60 pegs. It's a 1/2 inch gauge, but you can use a larger gauge with a thicker yarn or even a smaller gauge going to the 3/8 to use a thinner yarn. Now this one here that I used, the Montreal, it says on here that it is a number 4 medium, which is a worsted weight, but it's more like scarfy if you've ever used scarfy yarn, and it's a little bit thicker. So this is more of a, if you're going to use this particular one, this is more of like a 1/2 inch or even a 5/8. So I think a 3/8, it might be too tight. And as you can see here with my loom stitches, or excuse me, my knit stitches, they're nice and tight without being overly tight to give it a little bit of stretch, but not, stretch out the stitches so much. All right. So just keep that in mind with anything that I give to you guys to do. If you're using a thicker yarn, you're going to use a larger gauge loom. If you're going with a thinner weight yarn, like a worsted or a 3 or anything like that, you want to go with a thinner, smaller gauge. So this can be done in the round, obviously. For this hat, I'm actually going to do a matching cowl for this as well. I have enough to do a small cowl from that one skein. There were, how many? Oh, there's 187 yards in this. So this hat here didn't take too much. It was like half of this. And then this, I'll have enough to do a nice little matching cowl to go with this. So I'm going to put this over here for a second. And like I said, for that particular hat, I used this 60 peg rotating loom topper, which again is a 1/2 inch. So I want to show you guys that this can actually be done flat panel. So if you want to, instead of doing a cowl or a hat, you want to do a shawl or even a blanket, you can totally do that with this as well. So this one that I'm doing, as you can see, now I'm using a 1/2 inch on this also, and the yarn that I'm using for this is Red Heart Roll With It Tweed. This is very similar to the Colorscapes that I just showed you as far as the thickness. Now this says that it's also a worsted, but it's a thicker worsted. All right, so you can get away with doing a 1/2 inch or even a 5/8 gauge with this particular yarn. So depending on which you use, you can use that. So I decided to go with this. I really love the color of it. It's called Lilac Breeze. There we go, Lilac Breeze. And this is 296 yards, so almost 300 yards. I have 4 skeins of this, and as you can see, I only used about half of this one. That's my first one, and I have a pretty decent, I would have to say it's almost 24 inches done on this. I'm gonna get probably 2.5, 3 skeins out of this to make a really nice big shawl. I'll be giving it away for a Christmas gift to a friend of the family. But this is done, as you can see, this is flat panel. So the inside isn't really as attractive as the outside. And as you can see, you can really see that bridge, as I like to call it, with the 2 sets of eyelets here. There you go. So this is another one of my patterns. Like I was talking to Becca about this, you know, it's one of those patterns where it looks complicated, but it's really not. So if you're going to do flat panel, you want to make sure that you have, like this, I'm using the 70 peg oval loom, which is a 1/2 inch also. And as you can see here, my starting peg, which is right here, and then my last peg, I have an EP. And anybody who's ever done any of my scarves or shawls or anything like that, EP stands for edge peg. So this is where you're going to either knit or purl, depending on what direction you're going. Me, I prefer to purl to the counterclockwise direction and knit going back. But the great thing about this is there's no purling with this other than if you want to do the hat and you want to do a knit purl brim, that's completely up to you. I'm just going to show you the technique on how to get this really fun stitch design going. So again, with flat panel, what you want to do is whatever loom that you're going to use, masking tape is going to be your best friend. That way you don't have to mark up your looms or anything else. So what you're going to do is, with every other peg, you're going to knit 2 together. So you'll notice that I have a K2. That tells me that I need to knit 2 together. I highly recommend grabbing the written pattern with this, so that way you have it to go with, and use some kind of stitch counter because you're going to work over a series of 21 rows total with the flat panel and with the hat. But then you're going to repeat rows 8 through 21. So it's always good to keep something so you know what row you're on. So for me, I use masking tape and I mask this off. And then right next to my edge peg, depending on which way you go. Now, again, I work counterclockwise. It's easier for me to get started. You'll notice that I have a K2 and then I have an arrow pointing to that K2 going right. So if you work in the opposite direction, however it's easy for you to set up your loom, you want to do that. But we want to make sure that if you're going like me, clockwise, that you have your yarn over pointing to your K2 is going to be on the right. If you're working the opposite counterclockwise, obviously your arrow is going to be pointing the opposite way with your K2, which is knit 2 together for this particular thing. But you're only going to need to do this twice. Okay, as you can see from this, there's quite a bit of just regular U-knit right here, and then you'll have 2 sections that you're going to do the yarn over knit 2 together, and that's what gives you this bridged knitted look right there. Okay, and it's really that simple. So I'm going to show you the technique that I use. Right here I've actually done all 8 of mine, and yeah, I'm getting ready to, did I just do those? Yeah. I'm getting ready to do my section that has the first set, whoops, there we go. The first set of eyelets. Okay, so let me grab my hook. And again, I say this in a lot of my videos, when it comes to U-knit, don't do flat knit. Really don't, because that's going to make your stitches and your tension so tight, you're going to hit frustration real quick. Okay, do a simple U-knit and just relax your tension. It doesn't have to be, you know, pulled really tight. Your hand is there just as your guide, and then you'll be able to move along quickly. And this works up really quick. So as you can see, I've already started, I was right here, and then I have some empty pegs. So I'm going to knit the rest of these across, and then I will pause the video, meet me back here in just one moment so I can get started on the second, which is the most crucial part, where you guys can see how I do the knit over or yarn over and knit 2 together. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video. I'll be back in a moment. All right, so I have gone all the way to the end, and you'll see I did not do this. Now, a lot of times when people are working flat panel and they're really in the groove of things, they'll forget and they'll connect these 2. So just make sure you don't do that with this. So I've knitted off this last one, and now what I'm going to do is simply U-knit all the way back. So for this one here, hold on, let me fix that because I actually meant to purl that. Whoops. And I knit it. Grab that and pop that on here. See, even I screw up, and it's okay. We're going to bring that. Your working yarn always comes in front. And then for me, I'm going to purl this, and then I'm going to turn around and U-knit it again. And that's what gives us our nice clean edges. Now, this isn't blocked or anything like that, so it's going to curl a little bit right now. But then once I block it, see, I have that nice clean edge. It's not a slipped edge where it's loose and messy and loopy. No, it's a nice clean edge. And like I said, once I'm done with this and I block it out, it's going to look really great. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm just simply going to U-knit straight back. Okay, and as you can see, I'm just using my hand here as a guide for my yarn to slip through. I'm not pulling really tight afterwards. Actually, if you notice, I'm barely having to do anything at all because it's just slipping over. That's because I relax my tension when I U-knit, because if you don't and you pull it, what happens is it becomes so uncomfortable and so tight that you become frustrated with it and you don't want to bother U-knitting anymore. So just be aware of your tension. Like I said, it's something that could make or break you wanting to loom. You can actually break your loom. I've seen people break their hooks because their tension is so tight. So you don't want to do that. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to go ahead and U-knit all the way back to my starting peg, and then I'm going to redo this yarn over, knit 2 together, and show you how easy it is with my little hack that I'm sure if you guys have done either my reindeer cow or the 3 peas in a pod, it's just a matter of setting up that row so that way you don't have to move your yarn once it's on there and it becomes really tight. Okay, I'll meet you guys at the starting peg. All right, so I am almost at my starting peg, and if you remember, when I was over on this side, I purled it first when I came to this last peg here, and then I U-knit. But because I'm going in this direction, I'm going to U-knit it, and then I'm going to come right back around and I'm going to purl it. Again, that gives me that nice clean edge. It's not all loose like slipped edges are. Okay, so to do this, where you're going to yarn over, because normally you would look at this and go, why is there a K2 here? I don't have K2. We're going to move this one over, and then we're going to knit those two together. Okay, so how I do that is really simple. You're going to U-knit 1, 2, and then go to your third one. Then you're going to loosen this up a little bit, loosen this up, and then you're going to simply carry that one over. Okay, so now you understand, if this is your starting peg, you can knit those two together because there's 2 on there, and that one's going to be empty. So again, you're going to knit, knit, pull a little bit, carry that over, and you're going to complete that all the way around. So knit 1, knit again, give yourself a little bit of room, and carry that over. And you're going to complete that all the way around. And when we get over to this side, meet me back here. So go ahead and pause the video and then meet me back when you're over here coming up on the end on this side. All right, and now I am coming up to the last. So what you do is knit that one, pull it, carry it over, snug it up a little bit. And again, this last one, I purl it first, and then I come around and I U-knit it again for that clean edge. Now you'll see on every arrow should be an empty peg, and every one that I have marked with K2, that just tells me to knit 2 together. It's a lot easier to just write K2 than try and squeeze in K2 TOJ. So every one that has an arrow, which is a yarn over in that direction, for me it's going right. For you, depending on how you work, left-handed, right-handed, clockwise, counterclockwise, every yarn over peg is going to be empty, and every K2 one on mine is going to have 2 on it. Now, to work this in the knit, you're simply going to yarn over the front and not wrap it. We're not doing any E-wrap on this at all. So now that my first edge peg is done, and if you're working this in the round to do the hat like I did, or a cowl, this obviously would be a K2 here, and this would be a yarn over. So you would just complete that right here to connect those two if you were doing it in the circle, which I'm going to have the pattern show how to do it in the round and how to do it flat panel. It's just a little bit different because you're going to connect these two. So again, if you're doing this in the round, this is going to be a K2, this is going to be a yarn over, and you would just continue that. Okay. But this is the flat panel one. So for your empty ones, you're just going to bring your working yarn in front. You're going to grab those 2 loops. It's easier for me to grab them first. Bring that working yarn in front. And it's so, the tension is so easy. It's not tight at all. As you can see, it's bouncing around real easy. And you're just going to knit all the way back to the beginning. And then you're going to go, because I just completed the second out of the 2 eyelet areas, the crossed bridge areas, I guess I call it. And then you're going to get started in the knit section, which is this here. And this is 10 rounds of, or 10 rows of just true knit or U-knit. However you like to do it. I prefer U-knit because it's easier on my wrist. So the section is 10, and then you have one with the K2 together, 1 knit, K2 together, and then 10, and it's just a sequence until it gets to the length that you want. So if you're going to do a flat panel like I am, whether it's a shawl or a scarf, or even a blanket, this will make a great cozy blanket. I love this tweed yarn I'm working with. It's just a matter of how long you want it. Now for this hat that I did here, I did this a total of 8 inches from the top to the bottom of the brim, and I just added a cute fluffy little blush pink palm to that. And obviously, if you are making a hat, if you're doing it for a child or an adult, you want to size it accordingly. So if you want a standard adult size, you're going to go anywhere from 8.5 to 9. If you want a slouchy, so you have somebody with a lot of hair that likes to keep their hair under there, you're going to go up to 12 inches. It just really depends on what you want. I'm giving you guys the techniques. I really love how this came out. So that's pretty much how simple this is. And you're just going to repeat this. So it's basically, as you can see in the written pattern, it's 8 through, and then once you get to the 21st row, you're going to go back and do rows 8 through 21 again. And you're going to continue to do that until you've reached the length that you desire, depending on what it is that you're doing, whether it's flat panel, whether it's a hat, whether it's a cowl. And then for bind offs, now with a hat, obviously you're going to do a decrease crown, which is what I always do on my hats. Really easy, four peg decrease. If you're going to do flat panel like I am here with this shawl that I'm making, you're going to use your super stretchy bind off. Same thing with a cowl. I cast it on. You can cast on any way you like. I prefer the no hook crochet cast on for anything that I work with some hats. With this particular one, because I did fold the brim over, as you can see, I just did an E-wrap cast on. And then after I was done casting it on and I connected the cast on row to the top, I like this little lip right here that it gives. And that I just did a purl. So once I connected it back on, I just purled that whole round. And then I went into the knit, the pattern, the knit, the pattern, the knit, the pattern. There you go. All right. So I'm going to finish working here. Thank you all so much. Again, I can't even express how much this means to me to have you all have so much faith in me and in my designs, that you would be so willing to help and support and be a patron. And it encourages me to keep creating, pull out a lot of my doodles, and keep giving you all everything that I got. So I appreciate that so much. All right, gang, happy looming. I love you all. And again, as always, if you ever have any questions, feel free to message me. Talk to you later. Bye.